All right, welcome back, class. We're starting chapter 7, covering torts. So now we're going from criminal law back over to civil law. And today our guest is Jackie Wanamaker. She's an insurance defense attorney with the law firm of Smith and Silvic up in Syracuse. And Jackie, I brought you to the class as a guest because you're an insurance defense attorney. And a lot of my students will be working for businesses that have different kinds of insurance. And I'd like you to maybe talk about a couple different kinds of cases that you handle on a regular basis dealing with tort defense for insurance companies.
Sure. And hello to everybody. Some of the most common claims we get are for slip and falls or trip and falls at, grocery stores, shopping malls, restaurants, and also car accidents that occur while somebody's in the course of their employment.
All right, great. And are there some significant differences between those cases, or do you handle them all the same? I mean, are people's insurance policies different for maybe an automobile insurance versus like premises insurance? Like for my office, I have to have premises insurance, but I have my own auto insurance, but it's not really connected to my business. So I was wondering, do you approach cases sometimes differently? Do you approach claims against your clients differently depending on the kind of case that it is?
Yeah, so there are two different types of insurance, and I'm glad that you gave a great example. So your car accident or your car insurance would be liable to pay for any injuries that you sustain if you're in your vehicle and get in a car accident, even if it's not your fault. And that's known as no fault insurance. New York is considered a no fault state, which means that everybody in New York has to have no fault coverage on their vehicle. And for example, if you were driving home, and I hope this doesn't happen, but if you were minding your own business, sitting at a red light and you got rear-ended, even though it's not your fault at all that the accident happened, your own Geico or Liberty Mutual car insurance would pay for your medical treatment and lost wages up to $50,000 for that accident. Whereas premises have different applicable insurance. They're going to have, commercial policies, and there's no such, fault issue on those. Some of them do have what's called a med pay policy, which is just a small amount, usually under $10,000, to compensate an injured person for some of his or her out-of-pocket medical expenses. But commercial policies are generally $1 million to cover potential pain and suffering.
Okay. And tell me about your relationship with your clients. I introduced you as an insurance defense attorney. Is your client always one insurance company? Do you have many insurance companies? And do you work directly with the person who's being sued? How does that work as a course?
Yeah, that's another great question. I'm sorry. That's a great question. A lot of people ask it. We represent the person, like the business owner, the person who's been sued. Once they get served with the lawsuit papers, they would contact their insurance company to let them know that there's a lawsuit. And at that point, the insurance company would provide an attorney to them. They don't have to pay the attorney fees, because when they pay their insurance premium, that covers the attorney fees and also indemnity for, the potential damages that the plaintiff could get at trial or through a settlement.
And that's how the system of insurance works. If worst case scenario, something bad happens, so I was thinking about that. A lot of my students are planning on owning their own businesses someday, or maybe they'll have a position with a business. And just, as a business owner myself, I think about that, just any day, you think things are going according to plan, and suddenly you witness maybe an accident happening on your premises at your business, and you think, boy, all that investment of education, money, my time, everything was going toward this business. Now I might lose it because, I heard someone won millions of dollars from coffee being spilled on them. Maybe walk us through how a typical case works. You mentioned earlier if someone gets served with a complaint, and my class and I talked about that Where does it go from there? You say you call your insurance carrier, and then what happens? Like, how long does a case take? What happens during? What are some of the steps that happen?
Sure, yeah. So once the insurance carrier gets a copy of the lawsuit papers, they will assign a defense attorney, a defense firm to that case. Most insurance companies work with panels of different law firms, so they'll have, a few to choose from. A couple of the insurance carriers have in-house counsel, but most of them do hire outside counsel. So the insurance company would send the business owner in this scenario a letter saying, we've assigned law firm X, Y, and Z to represent you and defend you in this case. And then they would contact the attorney, and the attorney will also reach out to the business owner and basically, hold them by the hand and walk them through the entire thing and defend them, starting with answering the complaint and then serving discovery demands, then receiving and serving discovery responses to the plaintiff's demands, conducting depositions, potentially doing an independent medical examination, and exploring potential settlement opportunities throughout that time.
So I tell my class in the criminal context and civil context as well that very few cases go to a trial, and it's a single digits of cases, maybe even as low as 2% or something like that. Has that been your experience generally?
Yeah, I would say 99.7% settle before trial.
Okay.
Sometimes
yeah,
it's
the
right.
risks are just so high. Like the coffee case I talked about. What about you mentioned a couple of things. There was discovery, depositions. We talk about discovery in chapter 3 when we talked about litigation, but depositions are more common, right? I mean, not every case is going to go to a trial, but there might be a deposition. What's a deposition like for your clients and you?
Sure. Yeah, deposition it's going to be the person's testimony under oath. It usually takes place at the lawyer's office as opposed to in a courtroom. And there's not usually a judge present unless there's some specific reason where the parties arranged ahead of time to have the judge present. So it's basically going to be the plaintiff's attorney asking questions of the business owner under oath. There's a stenographer who takes down everything that's said to create a transcript of it. And I generally prepare my clients, at least a week or two before, sometimes for hours, just to make sure that they are comfortable with any potential question that could come their way. A lot of times it's a very nerve-wracking experience for people because they've never done it before, and
Sure.
and people automatically get nervous. And I find that it's best to prepare them a couple weeks ahead of time in case you have to do it another time.
Sure.
In between.
Now, nowadays, there's more and more cameras all around us. If I go to the ATM, I know I'm on camera. Probably if I'm in a parking lot, there's camera somewhere shooting, what's going on. What could a business owner keep in mind when it comes to if they have cameras on their premises or they're maybe at another business and something happens to them? What can they keep in mind about, I guess, videotaping going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of videos are recorded over, they cycle through, unless it's preserved. So if it's not saved, a lot of times it's just taped over within a day or a week or whatever that particular video cycle is. I've actually found it more beneficial than not to have videotape of an incident occurring. Yeah, a lot of times it's. Say it again.
From the defense point of view?
Yeah. A lot of times, it's not always as the plaintiff claims. For example, she says there's a huge pile of water that she slipped in, and the video shows there's nothing there. She claims her pants were wet when she got up afterwards because she fell in the water, and when she stands up, they're not.
Interesting.
So
So what about do you ever run into cases where you suspect there's fraud or at least severe exaggeration going on by the plaintiff?
Yeah, and one thing that comes up a lot is people with pre-existing conditions, and most people have some degenerative changes, after they're 35 years old, whether it's osteoarthritis in their hips or some kind of spurring or whatever in their spine. And if those degenerative changes have been symptomatic prior to the accident and they had treatment for it, and then they try to hide that treatment or deny that they had it, that's an area that I see come up a lot. They'll say, oh, I don't remember ever getting treatment for my left ankle before. But it turns out they've seen 3 orthopedists and they knew they needed surgery. And they lied to their doctors about the doctors who they see after the accident, which they often know enough to go to different doctors in an attempt to hide the prior treatment. So yeah, a lot of what we do is that kind of investigation, and that happens during discovery when we get HIPAA authorizations for their medical records relevant to the incident.
I got just a couple of questions that I'm curious about torts, and we might mention. We live in an area where suddenly any day, like yesterday, there's a sudden snowfall, and you can imagine a business that someone's working and it's snowing outside and they're worried about someone slipping. What's some advice that you could give, or maybe not advice, but just some information you could give about a situation like that? How do you prioritize, triage your duties when it's snowing outside and you're worried about someone getting hurt that way?
Yeah, there's a defense called the storm in progress defense. And it basically holds that if there's an ongoing storm, which has been defined as loosely as ongoing inclement weather and precipitation, the property owner does not have a duty to remove the snow and salt until the storm ends. And after the storm ends, they get a reasonable period in which to remove the snow. So where you have a case when someone falls during an ongoing storm, you can get the case dismissed on summary judgment if you assert the storm in progress defense. I've used that successfully, and it's an interesting defense. You'll get a lot of different, testimony. Sometimes the plaintiff will testify that it was snowing really hard when she fell, not realizing that it's hurting her case, her storm, because her attorney didn't prepare her on that. And weather records are pretty available nowadays. But again, that's where videos or photographs taken shortly after the incident come in.
Sure. Another one that I remember when I took torts was, there's this worry that, after someone gets hurt, maybe you see someone get hurt at your business and you think, oh, maybe if I put a guardrail there, that wouldn't happen in the future. Or if I replace this type of flooring, that wouldn't happen in the future. Does a business owner have to worry about correcting something like that and it hurting their civil case if that person ends up suing them?
No, and the reason is because there's public policy to keep the public safe. So if the store owner puts a rug down or installs a handrail or something like that after an accident, it would be considered a subsequent remedial measure, and that's not admissible because they don't want to discourage business owners from keeping the public safe.
So if it ultimately went to the fact finder, if it went to a trial, when you say inadmissible, it would be like it wouldn't be allowed for the plaintiff to bring it up during the trial, in other words.
Exactly.
Because public policy, we want owners to take these remedial actions without worrying about hurting their case.
Yep, exactly. But you could see the plaintiff attorney wanting to say, well, they put a rug down afterwards, so it must have been a problem. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, I remember learning that and thinking, oh, that's a good law. Now, just a lighthearted finish here. I asked my guests to share something, artistic in the law, either a song or your favorite movie, maybe, or a joke. Do you have something you could share with my class? Something lighthearted, not related to what you do for work, but some kind of artistic thing or something.
Yeah, I'm not really artistic, but I love the movie My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Highly recommended. It's an older movie, but it's really good. And my favorite scene is when the prosecutor gives his opening statement and Joe Pesci, who's playing the defense attorney, is exhausted. So he falls asleep during the opening statement and the judge wakes him up and says, okay, it's your turn. And he didn't hear a word of it, but he just says, everything that guy just said is BS. And And it's a pretty memorable scene. I love that movie.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that one myself. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for taking time out to share your experience with the class, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.